I tend to give a synoptical view of my opinions in regards to sex. Starting with this vid, it will be, I'm planning it to be one of three. It's going to be synoptic because I've already written extensively on the subject, and whoever's interested in more detail can look it up. Can look up my essays on it. So this is going to be an overview, general positions concerning sex and sexuality, and the second part will be about males, and the third one about females. Now, the first thing to say about sex, which has not already been said by Freud, amongst many, is its connection to mortality. That is, the evolution of sex happens as a response to mortality, to death. And before sex, before heterosexual reproduction, organisms multiplied through division. That is, one cell divided itself into two. With sex, the adaptation to changing environments happened more effectively, more efficiently, by combining the genetic material of one organism with that of another, and creating mutations which then prove to be more fit or less fit according to environmental conditions. Now, from a metaphysical point of view, life is unordering within the disordering. So we're told that life is veering towards increasing entropy. That is, things including the laws of nature. Laws are, of course, human constructs, but the patterns that men recognize and then formulate into laws are fragmenting. And this is called chaos by man. Chaos is anything that man cannot find a pattern to, cannot order, because it's too complex. So it's a human concept itself. Suffice it to say that everything is veering towards fragmentation. The absolute of that would be what the Buddhists would call emptiness, or the void. That would be a uniform nothing. In opposition to this, we have the more masculine outcome, the more not masculine projection of God, which is absolute order. So, to the void, emptiness, the feminine version of the absolute, we have the masculine version, which is God, absolute order, absolute authority. And these, of course, are human projections which facilitate understanding, because the human mind works on a binary system. That is, it uses dualisms, and it uses dualisms for understandable reasons. Dualism, or the binary logic, is based on synaptic flow or no flow. So when there's an energy pulse flowing through the mind, we call this flow. When there's not, we call this no flow. So this flow, no flow binary system eventually evolves into all the dualities we know: good, bad, edible, inedible, friend, foe, or even towards a more extreme of 1-0, which is again a human abstraction. It's a human system of semiotics. So the masculine energy is an ordering energy, a procreative and creative energy. That is, it's resisting entropic decay. So all of life could be seen as such an energy. This is why even in females, biological females, the procreation drive is rooted in testosterone. Once you take testosterone, the male hormone, out of the picture, then there's no sexual drive at all. The feminine energy is that of surrender to the status quo, which is nature itself. Nature, as we said, is this state of constant increasing entropy. The feminine wants to surrender to anything that is more powerful than herself, and this is the most powerful force, that is her own essence. Of course, she could also be seduced by a power that promises her the opposite. That's why a lot of females are attracted and seduced by the God concept, or any man who exhibits an intelligence or a physical symmetry. Intelligence, of course, is a mental symmetry, is a product of mental symmetry. So this is attractive to the female because it promises an order, a power which she is lacking in herself. Now, this is just a brief encapsulation of what I think. Of course, there's much more to it. I'm going to get into the main topic here. Why did sex evolve? Well, sex evolved for easily understood reasons. It's the only answer to mortality. It evolves to reproduce a species, to reproduce a genetic code. So a gene is a genetic code which is reproduced. It's a genetic code which replicates itself. And by replicating, it suffers the natural byproducts of attrition, because, as I said, everything is veering towards increasing entropy. Everything is active and interactive. Therefore, an organism, even while it's alive, it suffers attrition. That's what we call old age. And in the practice of reproduction, of reproducing genes, the codes of replication, mutations occur during this phase, these processes. And this creates mutations that are beneficial to the subsequent organism or are detrimental to it. Now, sex, since then, this is the rudimentary form of sex, the basic form of sex. It subsequently acquires other functions. It takes on a social function, becomes a social lubricant. You can see this in bonobo monkeys, where instead of conflict, they indulge in fornication or mock fornication. That is, there's never a penetration between male and male, but there's a symbolic humping which establishes hierarchy. There's always an element of dominance, of force in sex, because as I said somewhere else, it's connected to the feeding mechanism. That is, during sex, whether you're a male or female, you either want to absorb the other into your being, in the case of a female, or you want to dominate the other. That is, you have to cut it to pieces and absorb it into your being selectively as a resource. So there's a connection between feeding and sexual intercourse, which again I'm not going to go into right now. So it evolved from a system of reproduction, a method of reproduction. It acquires a social element to it, and more recently it's become a form of entertainment. That is, it's lost all semblance of its original purpose, all meaning, and it's become the pastime of children who just want to, while away the time with something that's pleasurable. So it's usually a sign of decadence, of culture's decay. And the culture decays towards materialism and hedonism. That is, individuals with no purpose except inebriating themselves, either with hormonal pleasures or with material acquisitions and the fix it offers them. This is what a modern thinker, Jean Baudrillard, said about pornography in this case. Quote, "At the heart of pornography is sexuality haunted by its own disappearance." That is, unquote. That is that as sex declines in significance, as sexual satisfaction declines, then human beings tend to indulge in it in a fantastic kind of way. It takes on fantastic proportions. That's why we see this tendency towards larger breasts, larger penises, more extraordinary and fantastic sexual practices during intercourse, the insertion of fantasy, of imagination unleashed, reaching absurd proportions of time, and only within the human animal. That's one aspect of sex, as it has become in modernity. It's lost all spiritual meaning. That is, in the past, a male and a female joined for a short time to produce something else, to perpetuate themselves. It later became a cultural method of perpetuating a not only a genetic code but a mimetic code. That is a culture, which is a set of ideals and ideas and morals. Morals are ideas, concepts, behavioral codes. And through this unity, there was a spiritual focus. That is, the child represented this union and also the destiny of an entire bloodline. So there was depth to the reproductive cycle. There was a sense of purpose and meaning. Of course, all that has vanished in today's world. It's become just a pastime for infantile minds or primitive minds. And the liberation of females has reverted everything back to not a natural state, because in nature the female was controlled not by an institution but by the costs of reproduction to her. That is, she had to be more selective because, and more careful in her choices, sexual choices and practices, because there was a cost to it. For her, the risks were far greater. That's why she took much more care in deciding and giving in. She not only had to endure a bigger and stronger male, but she had to go through the period of gestation where she was vulnerable to natural threats. And that's why females are more prone towards social comforts, social sheltering. So female was careful in the past because sex had a cost for her. In today's world, this is not the case. So we see this primal energy just unleashed with no cost, no significance, no meaning. That is, sex has lost all value whatsoever. This emancipation of women, which, as I've said somewhere else, is not really an emancipation from a masculine energy, because masculine energy has been abstracted in the same way that the resources have been abstracted into what we call money. The institution, the masculine energy, the male has been abstracted into an institution. We call it government or state or church. So as women have been unleashed from this control, from this intermediary male control, and now are acquiring more and more direct control, that is more direct access to male authority, the biological males are not only emasculated, but they're forced to divert more and more energy towards sexual matters. That is, they have to think about sex more and more. Whereas in the past, with the more controlled environment, that is, where one man could have one female and his sexual energies could be fulfilled there. he could divert his energies towards creativity, towards other purposes, thinking, philosophy, science. In today's world, men's energies are diverted towards sex again. All they think about is sex. Everything goes through sex. That is, everything becomes feminized. Everything has to become about relationships.